Yes.
He said IG pause.
It did. It's trying to
Is this mic on? Super DJ Sean Rebel Organic Radio Show. DJ K Latte Life on the photos. Once again, we got some peoples up in here. They call themselves All Up in Your Business. All Up in Your Business. We're going to make them go live in just a minute, y'all. Had to get the intro out a little bit so y'all can see what was going on. They say it's just the two of us. Brother and sister team talking about mental health awareness, the journey into it as well. You listen to the Organic Radio Show, All Up in Your Business podcast. It's a joint venture, y'all. Stay tuned. All right. All right. I can't even use that.
So the Facebook Live, that's all up in your business.
Why you not on your mic?
It's on the mind.
Why you not on your mic, Gilma? Gilma, why you not on your mic, man? So they just gonna leave air all in the show. It's gonna be all blank right there because he want to be on his Facebook Live, and we already on Facebook Live, so it's all good.
We're live.
We got Latte Life over here.
We're on the gram as well.
Shout out to IG, Instagram. Your mic is on.
I tried it. Look, you started telling me names.
Which mic you gonna be on, Latte? You got two of them in front of you.
What's that?
You live and you on the microphone, so I just want to know which one you using because you got both of them staring at you right there. All right, raise it up so you can put your mouth to it.
All right, there we go.
How y'all doing? Okay. How y'all doing?
We on Instagram Live at All Up in Your Business.
I thought y'all knew we was live. I started playing the music. That's when you know that the show started.
But he said, all right.
I was letting the DJ get some. Let the DJ get some.
I did. I got some. I gave it back to you.
There it is. There it is.
All right, introduce yourselves once again.
This is Lovely, the sister of the siblings on the podcast.
This is your boy Light. What's going on, good peoples? As we like to call y'all, we're trying to get this thing going. Hashtag Busy Bees. I'm a big Wu-Tang fan, so you know I've been a part of the killer. I've been a part of the Killer Bees for a long time. But needless to say, your boy, like I say, with all Up in Your Business podcast, our Busy Bees are those who are going to be chiming in, talking, understanding the importance of this mental health topic when it comes to our people of color. The minorities in our communities, and the reason that we want you guys to be busy about this is because we need more and more people getting the word out and spreading the word about the importance of mental health in our communities.
Absolutely.
Keep going. Don't be bopping to my scratches.
I'm thinking.
Yeah,
I was going to say we're also hip hop heads up in here. So being what we are, we had a little pause right there.
Yeah, it was a moment, a small moment.
So let us get into our show. We're going to kick things off, and as we're starting off this week, a part of it, and DJ Latte, you didn't introduce yourself before we go to.
I was letting you do your thing.
No,
Thank
you're
you, brother.
No, I'm sorry.
It's your girl K Latte Life. I'm here with All Up in Your Business, and we're gonna talk about mental health in our community. So I'm ready. Let y'all roll. I'm just riding along.
You ready?
There we go.
Let's go.
Oh,
that's it.
Oh.
That's the old days. I was ready to drop a verse.
You was gonna bust around that. Like you supposed to do it.
Ready to drop a verse.
He was gonna
Guess what, y'all? We all up in your business.
Nah, this week what what we're talking about this week, y'all, and what we want to kick into and get really live into is how we entered or came about coming into this journey into mental health. So this week we're going to be talking about a few mental health statistics, how prevalent and how prominent it is for us to be talking about this, and some of what you've been seeing in the media, because we were talking about some TV shows, some actors and actresses who are out there who are talking a lot about this very, very important issue. And one of the points I would make is that it's great when we have stars discussing it, but one of the reasons we started this was because we know there are regular people or local folk who do not talk about this as much as we should, and we want to take that stigma away. So I want to kick it over to my sister, or my lovely sister, Lovely.
Lovely Lisa. You get it. No. Anyway, super corny. Whatever. So we were doing some research, trying to make sure that we give you correct information and data.
Right.
We didn't want to come in with what we thought, because our opinions count, but we want to make sure that people are also able to go online and research and verify what we're saying. So I was on a website, mentalhealthamerica.net, and I happened to look up Black mental health. And it's some of the stats that I found were interesting, but I know it's so different for everybody. So one of them read, adult Black African Americans are 20% more likely to report serious psychological distress than adult whites. However, they were also 30% more likely not to report it to a friend or family. So they would be going through the same distress, and they may or may not go to the doctor, but you're living in a house with someone who's going through something and you don't even know it. You just know they're having a bad day or they've been having a bad week. And what we want to do is make it so that you turn around to someone that you trust, because you have to trust the person with your life to tell them what's going on in your mind. It's just the way it is.
That's right.
And we wanted to make sure that we put out information and resources for people to feel safe, have a safe haven to express your thoughts and your feelings, so that we can find some answers together. And
so, good folk, one of the things that what I would like to ask, one of the questions we want to put out there is, as we're dealing with this, as Lovely was reading off those stats, I read another statistic that talked about how only 5.3% of therapists in America are Black or of someone of color, and how the question I want to ask is does that contribute to our view on this particular topic? Because we don't see as many Black therapists, or we don't see individuals, because when you're trying to connect with someone, you want to connect with someone who you believe not only represents you, but someone who has experience or shared experiences similar to what you've gone through, even if it's not the same, because we know if you're growing up in a rural area, if you're growing up in an urban area, you're growing up in the suburbs, and if you're Black, you're going to have different experiences coming from each one of those backgrounds. But when you're sitting down in front of a counselor or someone who doesn't look like you,
That's right.
does it matter that this individual has not had those same shared experiences that you're going to be actually going through? And so one of our questions, and I'll start off and I'll kick it to, I want to hear what you say, K-Latte. I'm good right there? Because you know what I want to call you.
Latte, whatever.
There you go. All right, as long as I don't call you the other name.
Hello, focus.
There you go. I got to get folks. All right, here we go. So the question I want to ask is the stigma of how we approach mental health. How does this stigma, when you hear the term mental health, how does that affect you? How does that affect not only you, but how do you believe it's affected you and your family? So when you think of mental health and your household and your community, what impact do you believe that's actually had on you? And so that's just the starting question that I want to ask. And so we don't have to jump into the question right away, but I want to ask that question to our audience and to those individuals who are tuning in. If you were to sit down and just quickly write out, text, tweet, send it out to somebody, how would you describe your mental health experience? And since I'm getting a lot of looks in the room, I've thought about this. Let me start off by saying how it affects me.
I have a question as well that I would like to follow up.
Oh, okay. But let's do this question first. Let's do this. Go. So, for me, my journey into this mental health process started a long time ago. I remember, I think the first time and it was actually couples related, my baby would get me later. But it was couples related. I think I was 19 years old, and we were young parents. We had moved out on our own, and after we moved out on our own, life changed like drastically for us. And how it changed for us was we were now paying bills. We now had responsibilities that were just not just about the two of us. And we went from being these teenagers who were going out every weekend and doing different things to you have a child. And once you have a child, now you have a home and or apartment, you're paying rent, you have these different responsibilities. And so the relationship, instead of being what I perceived it to be, the relationship started to change. And for me, it was like, okay, we're not communicating. And so I remember being young and saying, we need to talk to somebody. We need to, like, when I started having these internal feelings, I felt like I wanted to reach out to somebody because the way I was expressing it was just, as I said a few weeks ago, it was anger. It was just frustration, and it would just cause an argument, but nothing good would come of the situation. So I remember the beginning stages of me wanting to go into like this discussion on mental health started way back in 1992, a long time ago. So that started it, and then I kind of continued going from there. So, Lovely, when did you start thinking about mental health and how it started to creep into, I guess, your ether and your world?
I believe that mine started way early. I started counseling when I was about 10.
Oh, wow.
Because I was dealing with the anger that was inside of me. And I honestly, in talking to my mom, she kind of just triggered some things. The word trigger is a trigger. But she kind of triggered some things, and she helped me to understand how much anger I had when I was younger. Because, the one thing I will say about mental health is if you don't know that you're sick and everyone else around you is sick, you feel normal. So when you start to ask questions that takes you outside of the box where everybody else is standing in the color blue, but you want to wear red every day, right, and you start to feel abnormal, that is when your mental health discussion starts to kick in. Mm-hmm. Because I was the kid who listened to Celine Dion. I watched musicals. I knew what the movie Cats was. Like, I knew some things that were so very different. I didn't grow up listening to hip-hop at first. I was into my 80s R&B for us back in the day.
All right.
But so I started therapy so early that it became super important to me. And I knew every move that I made represented where I wanted to be. And not that I was right all the time. I didn't have a father in my life. I knew when I had kids, I wanted to have a father in their life. And I wanted to have a real father. I didn't want to have like a dad who showed up on Saturday and left on Sunday. I didn't want to have a husband who I was fighting with. I didn't, there were just these different things. I want to say right around when we had our kids, and we were 21, 22 when my husband and I had our first kid, and you look at a child and you're thinking, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? And they're like, it's a baby. It's a baby, you love it. I'm like, well, how do I love the baby more than I love me? Because I know I don't love me as much as I love this child. Right. And that's when you start to really have to focus on your mental health, because do you want to taint this child with what you have in your head? No. You don't. That's not where you want to be. So I will say the birth of my child was my adult mental health.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Since he started talking, I was like, when was mine? And I would have to say by my second child, back then, we didn't have the words and the titles for what was going on.
What you felt.
But I know now as I got older that I had, what do you call it? Postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm. And that is
bad.
That is
yes.
And sometimes it's almost like you're out of your own mind. You black out, And I didn't know. I'm thinking I'm living a healthy life. I'm being this great mom. And I'm like, man, I was really depressed.
And
to the point it's like you're not taking care of yourself.
Or anything else.
Yeah. I took care of my kids, but me was just, I just wasn't nobody. I was like, I'm the vessel. I'm supposed to be just thinking. I was like a robot. Work, take care of the kids. That's it.
That's my question. I wonder how many of us suffer from PTSD of our environment, our upbringing, and our finances. It is, I think so many times people are like, well, you couldn't suffer from that. Well, if you were a kid at the age of 10 who had to identify a body in your house, that affects you. It becomes very different. If you had to worry about being having to move every year because you couldn't afford to live where you were, that's a problem.
Well, my kids always throw up the oldest child has that responsibility, and they're like, I just wanted to be a kid, but they may have really stepped up and it was really needed, you know, and I just need you to wash the dishes, or I may need you to do dinner so I can go to work, you know, and then they get older and it's like, I didn't want to do that. I felt like I didn't have my childhood, you know, it affects people differently. Some people, it makes them great adults because they already know what to do, and some are like resentful.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing all that, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'm giving you kudos, like, man, you were so super strong, independent, so smart, and it's like, no, really, I just wanted to go play.
Yeah.
You know, but you had me doing, you know,
A,
some
B,
grown-up
C,
stuff.
yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
But we were surviving.
Exactly.
You know, but we grew up with parents who was like, but did you die though?
Right.
You're like, no. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to chime in right here. So our safe word is going to be supersonic.
Okay.
That's
That's old school. Supersonic.
That's when you know that line when she keeps going and she just rapping, and it's like, okay, you're starting to run too long. Supersonic.
That's me.
Supersonic.
So what I want to do right here, Super DJ Rebel, what I want to do right here is I want to give the folks a few minutes and stuff like that. So I'm going to let you get down on them. Here we go.
Right,
we're gonna let you get down a little bit right now, because there are a few questions that I want to actually come back on, because we talked about postpartum. We talked about entering counseling at that early age, PTSD. There's lots of topics that we can cover. And because this is going to be an ongoing podcast, I want to make sure that we kind of progress through this thing the right way, because we know that we can bring you in and welcome you into this conversation, and we can have that buckshot approach where we're shooting all over the place, but I kind of want to keep us here. But the postpartum is something that I wanted to follow up on, because it's something that I don't think we discuss enough, because I remember when my wife was going through this situation when we had our first kid, I had zero clue.
Right.
And I was being a total 18-year-old jerk because I'm an 18-year-old father.
Right.
And like you say, she was still able to take care of, but I remember the hell that I was putting her through, because I didn't know. It's like, I'm still making it about me, even though I love my daughter. I'm still making it about me while she's going through that. So I want to touch on that a little bit after we let our boys get loose a little bit. So good people, we're going to take a small break, but we'll be jumping right back into All Up in Your Business.
Super DJ Sean Rebel, Organic Radio. You're in here right now with All Up in Your Business podcast. DJ Latte Life. We got Light and Lovely as well. My cousin Brown over there. Haha. Right now, I'd like to throw a shout out to everybody on IG, Facebook, and all other social medias. YouTube, TuneIn, iHeartRadio. Yeah. I see you out there rocking. Come on, let's go. Oh, hey. Mixstation.com, become a member, join the site. The live call-in number is 1-855-493-6499, and I say that slower, 1-855-493-6499. Holla at us. Mixstation.com, you can join the site definitely by 2 X's, MIXX station. Radio Live is the app. If you can't get the app on Apple products, my bad right now. Developer's still working on that right now. Once we get the developer done, y'all can download the app. But guess what? All my Apple users, y'all can still go to the app by going to Mixstation Radio Live on your phone, and you can play the application, but you can't download the app. That's the difference. I want to make sure I get that non-misconstrued over here, you know what I mean? For people that's out there right now rocking to the radio station. If you're on YouTube or you don't have a clue, you know what I'm saying, we on that YouTube as well. And on Facebook, shout out to y'all. I shouted you out last week on a bad note, but you know, on this week I feel better about myself, so I'm gonna shout y'all out too. Shout out Facebook, shout out IG, Snapchat, and whoever else got us on their social media right now. We really appreciate the love and the support and the donations that's been coming in. So if you want to donate to the cause and do a pause for the cause like that, you know what I'm saying? Mixstation.com, MIXX station.com. And And again, the number to call in for the live shows when they're live, because y'all be calling it after the show is over. But while we talking right now, that means we live. 1-855-493-6499. And I'll try to get y'all on the air to ask your questions to the host, Light and Lovely, of the new podcast up and coming, All Up in Your Business. And that's where we at right now. Special guest host as well, DJ Latte. Like the coffee. Yeah. Now back to the mix. Somebody said I should bring that Cheeks back in, so I'm going to bring the Mr. Cheeks back in.
Coolin', man. Chillin'. Yo, you know I had to call. You know why, right? Why?
Like smoking Joe Frazier, the Hellraiser, raising hell with the flavor, terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan, neighborhood Spider-Man, so all tick-tock and keep ticking, the shit I'm kicking, the Lone Ranger, cold red, danger, deep in the dark with the art, to rip the charts apart, the vandal, too hot to handle your battle, you're saying goodbye like Tevin Campbell, up next, Inspector Dex on the set, the rebel, I make more noise than heavy metal,
the way I make the crowd go wild, sit back, relax, won't smile. Ray got it going on, pal. Call me the rap assassinator. Rhymes rugged and built like Schwarzenegger. And I'ma get mad deep like a threat. Blow up your project, then take all your assets. Cause I came to shake the frame in half with the thoughts that bomb shit like math. So if you wanna try to flip, yo, flip on the next man. Cause I'll grab the clip and hit you with 16 shots and more. I got going to war with the melting pot.
It's the Method Man for short, Mr. Map. Move it on your left, and set it off, get it off, let it off like a gat. I wanna break food, cop me back. Small change, they putting shame in the game. I take game and blow the nigga out the frame. And like bang, my style live forever. Niggas crossing over like they don't know no better, but I do. True, can I get a sue? Enough respect due to the 1-6 ooh. I mean, oh, yo, check out the flow like the Hudson or PCP. When I'm dusting, niggas off because I'm hot like sauce. The smoke from the lyrical blunt make me
ooh, what grab my nut, get screwed. Ow. Here comes my Shaolin style. True, B-A-B-Y-U. To my crew with the yeah. Come on, baby, come on. Baby, come on, baby, come on. Yo, check it out. First things first, man.
Yes, y'all.
Oh no, she's not bluffing. No, we got it. We got a lot there. Oh no, they not. No, none of them. That would be my children. My children, they have people saying, and it's not bad, but this wasn't what they grew up with. But the one thing that makes me proud about that, and this is the importance of actually when we talk mental health and all that stuff like that. The music, the movies, the culture, all of that stuff factors in. And what we've done is even when we see it, I think we had this conversation the other day. We were talking about, well, like somebody asked me, or like, why does Wu have the impact on me that it does and stuff like that? For me, music was culture, and not only was it culture. We live, we on. I just gotta make sure, bro.
But not only was it culture, what music, movies, and everything. You know where black people first discussed our mental health and how we dealt with mental issues? In our art. And you talked about this a couple of weeks ago, Rebel, where it was our art that we were able to do it. It was through sports. And so what we would do is we would express ourselves a lot through these different art forms. And so when I would listen to the music that I listened to coming up, and I understand the negatives that people would want to add to it, but that was expression. What we were doing is I couldn't talk to a therapist, but if I can get on that mic and I could spit, or if I can make that film, what I was able to do in those moments was I was able to actually articulate and speak to what was impacting me and what I was seeing in the world. And it just didn't start in my generation. This goes back to the 60s. This goes back beyond that. But we were able to actually express ourselves, and it was therapeutic for us. And while it may not have always been expressed the way that everyone wanted to hear it, what we were doing was we were talking about, and I remember hearing NWA say this, we're talking about what we see. And then talking about...
That's my group.
Not my group.
Mine's.
But lovely, I said 60 seconds. That was 60 seconds? But no, needless to say, I think music and art weighed heavily on how we expressed ourselves and how we found our sanity. Because how many times you found yourself sitting in a room, and whether it was a breakup, whether you were trying to get hyped for a game, you were trying to get focused because somebody had just pissed you off. That music you would put on that one album, that one song, and what would it do for you? It would soothe you. It would calm you.
It would allow you to watch yourself back that thing up, because you know that song comes on and everybody runs to the dance floor.
Nothing more soothing than back that thing up.
Just saying,
that's a whole nother
quote. That's a quote. Hashtag back that thing. No.
He didn't even know that he put a cult classic out with that one song.
I was trying to think how calm I was when I thought about back that thing up. Let's see.
Yeah, how about that, right?
You can't be calm.
You can't be
I don't care where you are. You're
That's
like trying to get cake. You're in the bathroom. You wash your hands real quick. That's my song. You done ran.
When you're in a company function and you have to be a certain way, for me, drop it like it's hot. It came out.
Yeah, my body don't drop like it's hot no more. My knees
everybody
don't
was all
do that,
pinkies up when that came on.
He said
everybody
we
was
moved
like, "Oh, I didn't know," and I was like, "Oh, y'all weren't supposed to see it." That's my song. Then I went back like
sitting
with my
together.
friend, like, "So, how are you?"
Exactly. All right, so what we're going to do? Let's transition back. We left off talking about just when did you first start going into, or mental health start having the impact on you? At what point did you start thinking about like your sanity or something that kind of impacted how you were viewing mental health? So one of the things we left off asking was, K Latte, you had talked about postpartum, and we went into the break talking about how I remember being an absolute, and I just thinking it back, I was an idiot. But once again, I was an 18-year-old dad.
And you didn't have the education or the tools you needed.
Zero. But being this dad, talking to, and I remember seeing my babe sitting on the couch, and I remember seeing the depression, but I'm being this idiot who still wants to run out, get out on the streets, and still wanted, and she has the baby, and it's like, even when I had the baby, it was still sadness there, but I had no clue on how to actually deal with that. Right. So what I want to ask you is, like, when you talked about it, and you brought that up, what was the mindset? What not only what was the mindset, but how did you eventually start to transition from that place? Or did you what's like, as a woman, talk to a black woman, talk to us about what that actually was like?
We didn't have social media. I was a young parent, and it was traumatic. I can't even say when I got better, like now we're having a dialogue, but I just kind of worked myself through, like you said, music, and just kind of being a robot, and just like, this is what I had to do because I'm a parent now. It's not about me, it's about them. And that's the mindset I kept. Even the times I wanted to just give up or break down, I'm like, I can't, because it's not about me anymore. I'm not saying I healed from stuff, but I just got through, like she said, I just had to just do it, and that's it. And I look back like, wow, I feel like I was a little bit crazy. But, we laugh about stuff because we didn't know. We didn't have the labels and titles. It was normal. And now I'm like, oh, that's what that was, you know. Mm-hmm. But I never felt like, I went to harm or to, I know some people is way worse.
Real. Yeah.
So I thank God that I was never in that place. Mm-hmm. But I felt like so responsible. Like, how could I? Because I have to be there for them. It's not their fault that, I'm feeling this way, or other person is a as
Yeah.
you say, a-hole.
Yeah, but also remember a couple of points. There's a stigma in the black community whenever you talk about your mental health, that the minute you say that you don't feel good, something's not right, you have you're having anxiety, you are suffering from some kind of post-traumatic issue, you're told to pray on it, take it to the pastor, or talk to an elder. But if you're talking to an elder that's not healed, or you're talking to a pastor that's not healed, or you don't know what prayers you need or what energy you need in order to get where you are, it causes a conflict. So most of us wind up swallowing down the trauma.
Exactly.
And then you move on to the next thing with the baggage from the trauma, and then you try to create something new, but you can't create new from broken. You just can't. It's never going to be good.
Right.
So I think that kind of brings me around to another stat that I read on the mental health America.net network, and it reads, Black African Americans hold beliefs related to stigma, psychological openness, and help seeking, which in turn affects their coping habits. So we happen to be because we are so closed off sometimes from allowing our feelings to be exposed, because if you expose your feelings, you're weak. And if you live in an area where the weak are attacked, you have to put on that front. But over time, you start to believe that you're stronger than you are, but you can still see. It's like when you look through bulletproof glass, you can see the brokenness, but you just can't get to it. And that's kind of what mental health felt to me for a long time, until I could get to a place where I was learning how to heal. And healing really meant to be able to open up myself to hearing the truth.
How about that? Sister, to follow up on that quote, I read an article where it's Dr. Richard S. Schottenfeld. He made some comments, and he's the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at Howard University College of Medicine. I got to check with my baby girl.
Howard.
My baby girl may know him. But one of the things that Dr. Schottenfeld spoke to was, he said, in the black community, there is often a sense that unlike other illnesses, this is a personal failing, a moral failing, and that's really misunderstanding the nature of mental disorders. He says, people are often ashamed if they're feeling bad. There's a reluctance to show that you're hurting. And speaking from a male perspective, and it's so funny that the way we approach mental health and the way we approach this whole process is because we can't show that we're hurt. We can't. And I reference this one episode I had when I was young and growing up that stayed with me, and I always use this example. Was my uncle and I were playing catch with a football, and he was throwing a football. And back in the day, they used to have not just the plastic crates we have now, but if you guys remember, they used to have metal crates, the metal crates that they would carry milk and different things in. And someone had left one on the street, and so I'm running for this ball, not looking, and I reach my hands up to catch the ball, trip over this metal crate, scrape both of my knees, fall to the ground, and once I fall to the ground, I'm sitting there, and I roll over, and the first thought that comes in my head was, don't cry. And when my uncle walks up to me and is like, he's like, boy, you better not cry. You ready to cry like a girl? And so I feel the tears welling up in my eyes. But what that said to me was, I couldn't show that emotion. Even if I was hurt, I couldn't show that emotion. And because I couldn't show that emotion, that was something that I carried with me as far as what being perceived. The man was making sure I didn't, even if I was hurt, physically or otherwise, I couldn't show that emotion. And the trauma, but because the trauma that it caused was, to me, as I stated before, we could show anger. I could express myself in so many different ways, and the problem that caused for me was because when I would be hurting in a relationship, or when I would be hurting or feeling like something impacted me, whether it's from my girl, my wife, to me, or to my children, or even other family members, or even a homeboy, the best way for us to deal with it was through anger and through some type of force. It was not for me to actually discuss what I was dealing with in that moment. I couldn't even admit, look, bro, my knees hurt really, really bad right now.
Is that okay?
Like you know what I mean? I got blood coming from my shins. I have blood coming right there. And your first thought to me was not, "Are you okay?" But the first statement out of the mouth was, you can't cry, and you're not ready to cry like a girl.
Right.
It shuts you down. And just imagine when I hear what Dr. Schottenfeld said, it's like you're seen as being weak when those moments present themselves.
Right.
And so, like,
when you're just human.
Exactly. And I know we just don't deal with it from a male perspective, but when you have that, what you see in some of our reactions when that hurt bubbles up to the surface because you were not actually able to deal with that, is what you see happening in some of our schools, what you see happening in the streets. It's a result, and it's a direct result of the mental health issues that we're dealing with. It's not like it's just, oh, they're bad. No, there's so many other layers to that onion that need to be peeled back. And it's not excusing a behavior, but it's understanding these things are real. These things are very real in our community.
And to piggyback off of what you said, it's the same thing with being a female. You had to, depending on where you live, you had to present yourself with male-like qualities while having female-like attributes. So you had to look aesthetically pleasing, but you had to, when your mouth opened up, depending on who talked to you, you had to sound so rude and disrespectful. All you were doing was trying to fight off the fight. You were trying to ward off the fight. You were trying to make sure that you looked big and bad enough to really make it to the 51 so you could make it down to your school. Like, you were just trying to make it to the M2.
Gotta
you
be
were
the
just
lioness.
you were just trying to get to the subway to make it to Mondawmin Mall. But what you had to do was you became such a robot. Your face, it's funny, that resting bitch face. Most of us on the inside are so happy. We're like frolicking through daisies, but what you see on the outside is just what was built up over years. So it's just, I think men and women, we have so much in common, but because the communication skills are so different and our love languages are so different, it comes out like we're fighting when we're not. We're going to the same place.
So this is what we're going to do. We do have a few people calling in. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to talk, but we will open the lines up for a few calls right now. So we're going to allow our callers to chime in on the first two sessions. So, yeah, I was going to say. But you know what's funny? You say, and I've heard the love languages and things of that nature.
It's a great book.
But, God, I have the book. And I have all that. But the one thing that we have, we're human beings created equal in our humanity. And because we're created equal in our humanity, even though physiologically we're different, like we're made up, but I still think the core components of what makes a human, and what, like you say, what caused you to build up that exterior that you had to build up, that relates to me, and that's similar to what exactly. So,
absolutely.
Super Rebel, who we got?
Caller, you on the air.
What's going on? This is Toby, a.k.a. T.O. calling in. What's up, family?
How you doing?
What's going on, T.O.?
I'm good. What's going on? Hey, I just wanted to call in and comment on the topic there on mental health. And when did you find out first or understand it? I'm a county kid. For those who know what that is all about.
You should say which county. You should say which county, just so I can mock you.
Don't let him talk to you like that. Don't let him talk to you like that.
Howard County.
No, that's how we get Howard County. So Howard County, and definitely dealing with the challenges of trying to fit in, and like you referenced music. Definitely, I listen to hip hop, but of course I related to some of the other genres out there. And I realized a lot of my old music I used to listen to was very depressing. Now when I look back at some of the songs that I listened to, and it was because I used to tell people all the time, expression of me was my music. And I realize now a lot of my music at the time was very depressing. The Depeche Mode, The Cure, those groups are very depressing. Counting Crows, I can go on and on. But so definitely dealing with music, but it still was an expression because we are very expressive as blacks. That's just part of our history and nature. And of course, so that's just part of who we are. And again, I appreciate what y'all doing. This is big time. Much love to both of y'all and the station for holding it down.
Thank you.
Definitely enjoying the show.
Thank you, T.O. Thank you, T.O. Appreciate that, bro.
We appreciate you, T.O.
And I just want to say, really, that should be kind of a test you should do for yourself if you can. Go back to your 22-year-old self or your 16-year-old self if you still have well, MySpace isn't a thing anymore because your top 5, you had your music in it. But if you can go back to maybe your first CD you created for yourself, I know I'm dating myself, or your first cassette that you made for yourself, and see where you are.
No, that's dating yourself right there, the cassette.
Cassettes were great. You had to use your pencil to get it back.
Let me tell you, I was a splice master. I'm so mad.
There we go.
But if
my tape was crazy.
But if you go back and you can listen to the music or the videos that you watched or the movies that were your thing, it really tells you a lot about where you were in your life at that time. And I know for me, aside from the club music, I wanted to be in love. Like, all of my music was Freddie Jackson or Luther Vandross or,
Isn't that crazy?
Anita Baker.
I look back and what was I thinking about? Like, I was writing poems and all this. I ain't know nothing about love. I ain't had nobody serious. I wasn't doing nothing but going to church, but you couldn't tell by the stuff that I wrote. It's crazy.
All the influence was from your parents. Whoever was in the house at that time playing with music.
Like, you couldn't tell me.
I listened to Johnny Mathis, and that's soul.
She said no.
That's soul.
The music comes from your generation.
But all my hip hop was awesome. Like Fun Party, Heavy D and Brand New. It made me want to write. It made me want to be better. Like, I could do this. Like, that's crazy. But people didn't believe me.
Busta Rhymes let you be crazy.
Oh my goodness! So I loved it because I'm like, that's all me. I'm all that. I'm like a
what's funny about that? When the perception that's sometimes given to our culture or hip hop culture is that it's angry music. And it's more, like I say, it's expressive because it's therapy for the individuals who are speaking it and rhyming, but it's also therapeutic for us because it was just life, and it covered so many different emotions that you were experiencing when you were kind of coming up. I made a comment that I think was funny, and like I say, I always mess with my boy. I met T.O., I think, in 2005. There it is. He's going to throw a tribe on right there.
That's right. See? That's my
favorite. But I met T.O. Back in 2005. We were attending the same church at the same time. And when T.O. and I started talking, it was funny because I would say our journey was one of mental health for two brothers because I didn't know him coming up, but he's one of my closest friends to this day. And one of the things T.O. did was T.O. was in a small moment of crisis in his life, not bad crisis, but it was a mental moment. And when I reached out to him partly because I knew what it needed or what it would take. I knew what because I had been experiencing what I was experiencing in my life. I could recognize someone else who was going through. Exactly. And so when I reached out to him just to be like, hey, bro, I'm here. Don't want anything. Don't have any expectations. And from that, our friendship has kind of grown and blossomed. And I watched this man go from that man 2005 to the father that he is, to the husband that he is. And watching all of those things like this, because of the mental health journey that we started way back when, we've kind of worked our way up here. And I think it's good to have those friendships, those bonds, to be able to speak. And even though I mess with him on the county tip, just being a kid from the county doesn't bother me because, like I say, my kids are county kids. They're raising up. Yeah, you from West Baltimore. Stop.
I'm from Patricia Jacobs. Remember that? We have a caller. Hello, caller.
Caller, you on the air?
Hey, what's going on? CR's in the building.
What's going on, Fundamentals? Devo.
How's it going, man? First of all, leave West Baltimore alone.
Real sensitive.
But I just wanted to call in and show support. I love what's going on. I appreciate that you guys are being transparent and talking about just mental health and how people can continue to grow and better themselves. So I just wanted to call in and show support, show my love and appreciation for what's happening.
We love it. Thank you so much.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, no
appreciate
doubt,
the love,
man.
my brother. We appreciate the love.
All day.
All right, keep it up. Keep it up.
Will do, bro. Will do.
All right.
All right, peace.
See, I'm just saying.
You're saying what, sis?
People just want to be connected.
Like it's, what's funny though, and I'll say this. I'll say this because this, and I do have stories because them brothers that are calling in, those brothers were with me, and I always tell people they may not even realize, and they don't realize sometimes. And I would share what that was. His name is Dave, but my buddy Dave, as he just called in, we were in the group Christ Regiment together, so we would travel around. And Rebel can attest to this. There were times where it looked like we would get ready to fight each other in the studio. It would be times where we were always a connected unit, but we would always be very expressive of who each one was. We were not ashamed to be our own person, and we came from different backgrounds, but we all had the same one common goal in mind. But what those brothers were to me, from a mental health standpoint, were they allow I could be free with them. I could speak to them. Some of my highest highs I experienced with them, and some of my lowest of lows. I remember sitting and talking to them about different traumas or different things that I was going through, even while we were developing as a group. And it was some of the best therapy for me to have friends that I could be that honest with, and that I could be that transparent with. They mean the world to me. And we're all kind of spread out. T.O. is in Virginia, Dave is in Texas now. Not that y'all want y'all business out there, but needless to say, I just put it out there.
Say the government names now.
No, I won't do that. I'll go T.O. and fundamentals, but nonetheless, those friends of mine, even though they're miles away, whenever we speak, is one of those things that always thrills and warms my heart, because they're good people who allow me to not put on that facade of being a fake man.
Absolutely.
And that's what, when we were earlier, we were speaking with each other, and that's where it comes in when we talk about the circle. So sister circle, your bro circle, whatever, those people who you can go to with your heart completely on your sleeve, and at your lows and your highs, who can celebrate you even when they're not celebrating themselves. Those are the friends that you need in your life. That's why when I say, and I will repeatedly say it as long as we are doing what we're doing, the people who you trust, who you know have your whole spirit, soul, and body in mind when they're speaking to you, are the ones who you can go to and talk to about the things that are bothering you. Because the worst thing you can do when you're having a mental crisis is think for yourself. Because at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can come up with some things in your head, and you can make yourself believe that you're not wanted, that you're not loved, that you're not good enough. When on the flip side, you have people who look up to you, and when they think about you, you make them so happy. And we kind of overlook those things. That's the relationship I have with my brother. He and I we met when he was 18 and I was 15, and we were on the same path but a little bit different. And as we've gotten older, he is a person that I know that if something's crazy with me and I reach out to him, he's not using that to shoot me back. Or vice versa, and that means the world. But it could be your best friend. It could be, it could be your pastor or mentor that you go to talk to, or spiritual advisor. It could be anybody.
That's right.
But make sure that you know in your heart that you trust them and that they have your goodwill at heart, because the same people who can listen to you complain about your life will turn around and shoot you at the same time, and that is not what, when you're in a crisis, that's not what you need. So try to pay attention and be open with that.
So perfect segue, sis, into the next quote that I have. A quote that from, once again, this was an article I read from Dr. Schottenfeld. He says, the stigma of avoidance of care plays a big part in how persistent and disabling these disorders are. Talking about the disorders from anxiety to bipolar, the depression, all of these different things, schizophrenia. He says, so the stigma of avoidance of care is something that we practice. And because this stigma persists, he says, the earlier people get treatment, the more successful you can be in helping people regain their ability to function well before they've suffered consequences. I made a statement a while ago talking about growing up, I got to keep my hands still. I'm sorry. But I made the comment earlier and telling the story about tripping over the crate and the response of holding my emotions in and not being able to cry, and that coming out in some form of anger. The stigma of avoidance of care is something that we have in our communities. And sis, what you just talked about was a spiritual advisor, your pastor, a friend, a mentor, anything like that. What are some of the reasons we don't go to those individuals? Why? What do you think? And was there a point in your life? I know in my life there was a point when, because I didn't automatically open up talking to my buddy Dave and T.O. About certain things. There's still things in my life that I'm still presenting as new to them, even in our relationships and our conversations. So my question would be to the two of you: what would cause you to avoid opening up to someone, or in the past, what caused you to avoid talking with someone about the mental health experiences that you had on if something was going on inside of you? What says, you know what, I'm not going to speak on this because of Rebel?
I want to implode on that situation and say fear of judgment. Your best friends, the pastor is held in high regard, Your best friends are held in high regard because everything that they thinking about or judge you on is critical to your thinking, because what you feel that they're feeling about you is going to cause that situation to get even worse or make you feel a certain way.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Wow.
Like your mom and your father, when they're talking to you, they're not trying to talk down to you to make you feel like you're not a person or you're not a human. They're trying to correct the problem that you're causing, like you don't want to sweep the floor, and they yell at you or they give you a good tongue lashing. It's not to put you down to make you feel less of a person or a human, but it's to let you know that you need to follow this guideline, because I mean what I say what I mean. But once you get that hit on to you, it makes you feel some type of way, and you take it in internally and feel like this person is bashing me down, and you feel less of a person, or you feel less than what you want. You may have had the aspirations to sweep the floor, but because that person talked to you a certain way, now you don't want to do anything.
And you won perfect, because I think that's what causes most of us to stop, and it's especially in the minority community, because we have these preconceived notions of what being strong is and are. Like for a black woman, and I know you guys can speak on it much better than I can since I'm a man and not a woman, but like you say, there's certain things that I've watched, but no, there are things that I've seen, like from the single moms who had to lift up and raise up and be the backbone and head of households,
Mama Dada.
that exactly, that they had to be strong. So the permission to be weak was not something that you thought of. And from the male perspective, it was, when we had so many distorted versions of what a male could and should be.
Exactly.
Oh my
But
gosh.
when you talk about the judgment part, that's, I know what prevent me from speaking to people is just that. Because even if it was a pastor, my first thought was, they're not going to get it. And then there were times when you did talk to pastors about things that once you revealed it to them. I once had a pastor try to blackmail me once I sat down and talked with him about something, and it was only trying to get me to continue volunteering to do something. But it was
still,
like, if you know, I may have to go
Yeah.
to the congregation
Like
on this
guilting me.
if you don't continue to do this. And it was like,
Oh, wow.
the church is just like the streets.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, it's
Oh, that's a whole different show.
That's
It's
what
the
I'm
streets
I'm
inside of
on
a
the next
building.
program.
Pause. Because we're not
Hey,
we're not going to come after my
We're not
face.
here.
We're not going to come after my face.
We love your face.
But
I'm just saying.
but that was real. When that was my experience. But when Rebel said that was something that I had to realize. It caused me caution in who I was going to discuss what I was going through with.
Exactly.
And I think that trust has to be built when you're seeking care. And one of the reasons that I think we struggle as a community with opening up and talking to different individuals is because we don't have trust that the response is going to be about us, but
Right.
whatever the person is intending when they say it to us.
Right.
Or also that saying, I have mine, you have to get yours type mentality.
Exactly.
So when you go to someone, and if they haven't gone through it, or if they haven't dealt with their own. So when you come to a person and you tell them, I'm hurting, I don't know what to do, and they're looking at you and they're like, well, I have to deal with this, so do you. And that is one of the things that prevents you from moving forward, because if you talk to a person and you mirror their pain and they're not ready to deal with it, they pretty much will hex you away. Like they don't want any
they don't
parts
wanna
of
hear
that.
that, yeah.
Because how dare you bring my pain in here and speak to me? So I know that as a young girl growing up, when you, like you said, when you watch moms or dads or grandmothers or aunties raising 3 or 4 kids, they don't have time to deal with that pain.
Nope.
They don't have time to figure out what's wrong with you. They just know they want to make sure that you ate right. Okay, and you went to school, or maybe you didn't, but like, all right,
And I've
well,
done my
like,
job.
you know what I mean? I've done what I could do.
That's the
And they go
fundamentals.
down, lay back down, get back up, go to 2 or 3 jobs, come
Exactly.
back. They don't have time for that. And I think that time sometimes gets away from you. So you
Absolutely.
assume that you're dealing with something because you go to church every Sunday. You making sure that you're, talking to your different girl groups, but you're not having real conversations. You're having like these, these fictitious conversations where it doesn't even touch the pain that
Or
you're
what
really
you
dealing
would like
with.
to be
Or,
talking
because
about.
sometimes when you open up that portal,
Oh yeah.
what comes out at you is so strong that it knocks you on
Exactly.
your ass. And if you don't have the support that you need behind you to push you forward, it could feel debilitating.
Yes.
So
wanted to
I would say,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I would say that fear of rejection, because I could come to you and something might really be bothering me, but you generalize it and put it down as if it's not important, or oh, you tripping over nothing. It's like, I'm in the house crying like this is real for me.
It's a whole
you know,
it's a mountain.
and there might be more to it than what I'm looking at, you know. So I always listen to people when they call me because you just never know. I always tell him, he's like, you always answer phone. Like, you just never know, and that's just how I feel. But I have girlfriends that are, you know, they could come to me with stuff, and they was like, I could just always tell you, and you just get me right. Not saying I got the answers, but just me listening alone. Sometimes we figure things out ourselves. Like me, I always say this to my girl, like, man, when I said it to you, I figured it out because maybe I needed to say it out loud.
It was a boomerang.
And she was like, you already got it. And I be like, you know, I just had to say it out loud. Now everything's like coming together like a puzzle. But she has other friends that she'll call same situation, and the response is just like, you know, a gangbang. And she like, when I call you, I don't get that. And I was like, some people waiting to just judge instead of listening.
Because they want to make sure they repel it off of them.
Exactly.
There's nothing wrong with me, it's you.
Right. And I always tell her, you know, people live in glass houses, can't throw stones, you know, pick one, you know. And she would tell me that, you know, there's no sin greater. And I was like, thank you, you know, because that same person that's sitting there judging and doing this. And I'm like, well, what about that time you know, you forgot I know you. You know what I mean? So I don't let that stuff eat at me because she always tells me, Latte, consider the source. And I'm like, that's why they said that to me. Okay. So now, I pick and choose what I'm going to reveal, as we would say. You know, if I'm dealing with something real, I'm not saying that to everybody. Even though I feel like I'm an open book. I'd be like, well, go ahead, judge it, whatever. But what you say is what you get. I'm going to be the same person every time you see me. Because that's just me.
Why welcome the hurt, or why welcome some of the pain? Because not and Lovely has been saying it the entire time. Like, some people, if they've not dealt with what's going on inside of them, they're not ready to receive what it is that you're about to discuss with them. So I think that's one. And then the second part is who you're meant to connect with is not the general public is not where you should go looking for acceptance. Absolutely. And I know in this social media age where everybody puts all of their emotions and everything is there, you have to be careful because you'll hear a song. I messed with my baby girl, my youngest daughter, about the Cardi B song "Press," and I was like, when she was like, "Press, you know, Cardi don't need," and it's like, but you create the press. So you can't create the press and then you can't create the press and then do that. And I'm not knocking her for it, but what I use it as an example of, be careful when you're venting and placing your emotions in the public arena and looking for empathy or sympathy there. Right. That's not what that public arena is for.
To take you
I was
down.
gonna say, because they may see something that you're going through or hear something you're going, and they want to be the vultures that come in and pick up, pick the carcass apart.
And they have to, or us as a whole, have to realize that what you giveth is what you receive. So we have to learn how to receive the critical criticism from all of the press that we're getting as well. So if I come up in here and Light says, "Hey Rebel, what you think about the interview from last week?" And I'm like, "It was alright," and you take it real critical. It's just like my opinion, right? Exactly. Because I could mean it was alright because the engineering wasn't right on my part. Exactly. But you may take it a different way. So how you receive something could mean everything. And me and my wife Latte, we always go through that, because when I'll say something, I'm very brash, and I tell her I apologize, and I'm apologizing on air as well. I'm very brash to her when it comes to the business side, because I don't want her to get ran over or somebody to take advantage of her. So I figured in my own mind, this is just me, that the way I'm going to show her how to move with the big dogs is to be a killer, like a monster. No emotion. She's like, "Why you don't never smile?" Because I have no reason to smile right now. It's all business. It's not about getting just the money. It's about going through the people that take advantage of you.
I was just telling Trisha how crazy you are. I said, "You know Rebel crazy, right?" I said, "You know." I said, "So when I hear you say this, really?" It's like no smile. Like, no smile.
He's always where he say poker face, and I'm like, I've like, why you always smiling?
I've seen beyond the poker face.
I feel like I'm concentrating on just having a blank face, and he's like, "You look mad all the time." I'm like,
I'm trying to stay. I'm trying to match your spirit.
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah. So like,
I say, on the inside, he like woo woo, and on the outside, he like keep it straight.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm throwing ideas at him about my show, and he's like, just no face. So I'm like, okay, I'm not telling him nothing.
I'm giving you answers. I'm giving her answers about her show, but I'm not. I'm showing a sway of. I'm so excited. That's the one.
So I'm excited, and he just looking like I said, pass the ketchup. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna bounce ideas off of you.
Throw the ketchup across the table.
You know,
take the ketchup.
No,
but then when I do that, it's like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like,
there's no attitude.
I thought that's what you wanted me to do, because obviously, you know.
So we got mismanagement of direction of where
misdirected anger.
No, misdirected poker face. That's what I'm gonna call it.
Okay.
It was a misfire. There was a misfire.
So I know we're right around or right approaching like the close of the interview, and as we're approaching that, I have one more quote, and then I have another question for everybody for us to kind of do that.
Okay.
This is another quote from Dr. Schottenfeld. He says, "Some people, their cry for help is to do something self-destructive or destructive to others. They act out in anger because they're frustrated. Dr. Schottenfeld explains, but if they can get a chance to talk about it, they can get relief. They learn what the effects of stress and trauma are, to see that it's understandable to have these feelings and that there are things we can help them do to manage those feelings, like introduce them to healthy coping mechanisms. They end up both avoiding trouble and succeeding." So that's a very powerful quote, because it talks about how once you begin getting help or obtaining help, you can start to this process of getting better in your journey. And to me, it's an ongoing journey. And I call this a journey. And whenever I talk to people about it, I always say this is a walk that we are on together. So the question I have for the panel as we're sitting here is, can you think of a time when you displayed disruptive behaviors due in part to how you have handled your mental well-being? So once again, have you displayed disruptive behaviors due in part to how you have handled your mental well-being?
Well, a little bit different answer. Not really myself, but just understanding it wholeheartedly and understanding where you stand in people's lives. So I have a girlfriend who is absolutely my heart. But years ago, she was really sick, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. And when you're young, you don't know where to go or who to turn to. So I was sitting at work. I received a call, and the call was like, "I just called you to say goodbye, and I love you." Now, I'm empath. Things come into me, and I feel them, and I go with my gut. I don't trust anything but what my gut says. So she hung up. I called 911, sent it to her house. They go to her house. She tried to kill herself. Shit fucked me up, okay? But because I still didn't have the tools to be a calmer, more sympathetic person, I called 911 because I was like, that chick hung up on me. How dare you hang up on me? We had things to talk about. And then when I realized what happened, I realized that was her final cry. That was her saying, I'm hurting and I don't know what to do. And if somebody doesn't do something, I'm going to let it go. And that was a pivotal moment for me to work on how I receive people's messages. And what I do in response to those messages. Because what if I was just an asshole and was like, all right, instead of going with what I felt? Or what if I was a person who was like, she's always going through something?
Exactly.
So to answer your question, me personally, mine's is more of I believe a lot of us are raised to be single mothers than we are to learn how to be wives or to be partners. So
that's a whole nother conversation.
But for me, that's my correct. When I can't hear what my husband says. When I don't respond to it. When I don't know what his feelings are because I can't feel them. That was my, on a relationship side, mental health moment. We actually we went through trauma trying to get to a place where I could hear him say to me, "You're hurting me," because all I heard was, "Oh, he's just complaining again." Yeah. So I think for me, that was my kind of, when you talk about acting out, my act out really was not listening. Because I didn't want to hear that I was doing something wrong. Right. I didn't want to accept that there were things about me that weren't perfect. Because that's what we're supposed to be as women. Perfect, Right. And when you realize that the perfect thing about being who you are is being imperfect, because it makes you, it gives you your own brand, So that's my answer.
So, King Latte. So let me repeat the question again. So have you displayed disruptive behaviors due in part to how you have handled your mental well-being?
I know that I have, but as a woman, every time you ask me a question, it's kind of like Lyle already said, pretty much my same experience. I guess that's, mothering. There's so many things we can talk about. So yeah, I would say I know I definitely had my moments that I'm not proud of. But I would have to say, just me probably not taking care of me. I took it out on myself because I'm such an empath that even if the person is wrong, I would still be like,
it's me.
Oh yeah, it's because I didn't do that, because that's what you told. Like, oh, if you did this, then they wouldn't have this. So I'm always like, okay, let me check myself first, because I'm still like that. We may not agree on something. It's like, let me check myself first, and I'm like, no, that's not me. That one was you. But I always believe in accountability, so I'm always like, oh yeah, that was me, or maybe I shouldn't have said it like that, or I said it wrong. Like me and Rebel, I was talking about. I don't like some people want to text like everything. And I'm like, everything can't be text because you may take it different from how I meant it. Yeah. Like me, and I talk shorthand, and I'm laughing, the whole time. I'm making sure. My daughter's like, why are you always making sure you put LOL? I was like, because people really think that you're coming at them, or and it's really not like that. I was actually joking,
my
I'm
kids
saying
told me to stop
like
using periods at the end of sentences on text
yeah, because it's like it sounds maybe a little too business, and it's like with me, supersonic as you call it, I'm just going on because that's how I talk. So I text the same way. It's like, wait a minute, oh, she's giving me a lot of information. Okay, are you talking about this or you talking about that? So I would have to say, to answer your question quickly, that I had to stop beating.
That wasn't quickly.
I had to stop beating.
So disrespectful.
Latte up. See, I take accountability. I know that I did that.
Go ahead.
So
there it is.
I had to stop beating me up.
So you had to
just
stop.
say that it's okay to, be flawed. It's okay that I didn't handle that situation well at all, even though I felt that person was wrong. How I responded didn't make it any better, and I'm not going to disclose the things that I've done.
And Light, how about you?
How about me? So I gotta see the question again.
You're basically saying, how did you handle?
So disruptive behavior. My disruptive behavior was and I'll keep this real short. It was always anger. I was raised by my mom never to hit females, and that was because of our dad. My dad was he was a jerk. He was very, very abusive. So she raised me not to hit females. So I would never hit my wife. I think I told you guys the other day. I think the last time I gave my oldest daughter a spanking when she was 5. It just wasn't in me. I found other means to discipline my children. But the one thing I would do, I would hit a wall, I would bang the floor, I would throw things, I would do other things that would be mentally draining and emotionally damaging to my family. I mean, it was scary. I remember seeing in the mid to late 90s, the first time I recognized that even though I wasn't physically touching my family, that my anger was emotionally scarring them, just something terrible, and it changed the way that's when I really started asking myself, like challenging myself, because I was terrible. And it was funny, I moved from anger to suppression, which led to other things later on. So like I said, that's a different conversation. But what I want to do now that I answered, so anger would have been my disruptive behavior, is I want us to go to a little break, and we're going to come back with just one more small segment where it's a question, and then we'll kind of close out this last interview.
Okay.
All right.
Mixstation Radio, Super DJ John Rebel, Organic Radio, all up in your business. All up in your business in the building, y'all. 1-855-493-6499. We almost done here. Hope y'all enjoying the show. It's an organic radio show with the segue of All Up in Your Business podcast. They already start their own show, y'all. Hope y'all tuning in and enjoying the show. DJ K Latte Life. We got Light and Lovely in the building. All up in your business. Oh, I know what I could do right now. I can shout out our sponsors. Club Expectations Bar and Lounge. Basic Black Clothing, FSE Wear clothing line as well. Terra Cafe 2. Yeah. Shout out to all my friends and family. You know what I'm saying? Organic Radio Show. We are the platform for the platform. A lot of people like to say that, but I started that back in 1996. If you really want to go there, I started in 86 with Shabazz. You on the air?
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
We are great. Thank you for calling.
I'm regular.
You're regular. I have a question for you. I have a friend with bipolar disorder. I wonder why. Why do most people think it's just a mind over matter, that most people use it to get a check?
I have to say this. One of the things we always try to, when we respond to questions like that, is we're trying to further the dialogue, and we're not mental behavior therapists. Exactly. So when we respond, we're responding based upon our experiential situations and some of the information that we've gathered. So when you ask the question, why do some people look at it as gathering a check and things of that nature? If you're talking about someone coming from a minority or underserved or black community, one of the reasons I believe that is because we don't approach mental health as if something is real. When we see that, and when somebody's actually experiencing that chemical imbalance or something happening to their brain that's actually messing with their body and how they perceive reality, when we see that, we think it's just a joke or somebody just playing crazy to take advantage of the system, and that's just another sign. And when I say our ignorance, and I'm talking about we a community, I'm not casting shade on anyone. Our ignorance doesn't cause us to realize, but our ignorance doesn't allow us to realize that these emotional experiences that we're having are actually real. And what your friend is going through, and even if they're receiving aid from the government in whichever way they are, that's still whatever finances or food assistance they're getting, it still doesn't make them better as a person. So to pretend just to get some financial or small financial support at that is not like what's going to help that person become whole. I would say that person still needs some support from a therapist, a group, a doctor, or someone else.
And also, I think that if this person is trying to get help, we should celebrate that. Exactly. There are so many people who have disorders who refuse to accept the help that's out there. Yes. And sometimes that help comes in ways that makes you feel a little embarrassed, or it makes you feel like you're less than a person, or it doesn't make you feel human, because when other people judge you, and if you take that as who you are, instead of trying to figure out the true answer to your healing, it becomes an issue. So I think as far when it comes to the judgment portion of this game that people assume you're playing, they should also ask themselves, what am I not dealing with, or what am I not finding healing in myself? Because a lot of the times when people start to pick with you or judge you, it's because they're really talking to themselves. They aren't talking to you. You know, we just happen to hear the voice.
True. Very true. Okay. I had to bring that because the person was scared to call in and ask the question.
No, it's okay. It's okay. We'll take it anyway.
But you know what? I will say something.
Your voice was needed.
One of the things that you say they were scared to call and ask the question. One of the things that we're going to be about on this podcast, All Up in Your Business podcast, is we want people to feel safe to communicate. We want people to use everyday plain language when they're talking with us. We want people to be as open and transparent as they feel they can be. And if they can't do it over the air, they can feel free to reach out to us on one of our social media platforms.
You can do at AllUpNUrBizness under our IG or AllUpNUrBizness at gmail.com. We'll have it listed on Facebook and Instagram for people to find, and they can always send us a direct message and we'll get back to them as soon as we can.
And as the future progresses, one of the things that my sister and I will be doing is we're not going to start a self-help group, but what we understand that sometimes people want to touch you in a live way, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to have live discussions with people where we invite people to a specific location in Baltimore and we get together, we meet, we talk, we discuss some of these topics, because we know we want to take this beyond just a podcast. And our goal is to actually enrich and engage our community, because unlike some idiots who think that there's no one who wants to live in Baltimore, I'm one of those big time shots fired. But I'm one of those people who know that I'm here to support this community and want to make sure people become well. So please tell anyone who is listening to the podcast, don't feel any shame. We're here talking about those things that caused us not to want to speak to people, but you're not going to be judged, you're not going to be rejected, and you will be accepted, because we want people to become well. We want to see people whole. And if we cannot, and we understand what our limitations are, but we're gathering research so that we can point people in the right direction, so that so that they can get the help, so that they can do well in and of themselves and support their families wherever they find themselves in life.
Thank you so much for calling us.
She had another question.
I'm sorry. Go.
Okay, it's more like a statement. Well, I grew up with a part that was schizophrenic and a sister that has bipolar disorder. Mm-hmm. So living with them was sometimes a living hell, because you didn't know which day what personality he was going to get.
Absolutely.
So it was hard, and then it messed with me as a young woman with my relationships, and I had mommy issues, and still to this day I still have those same issues. And working on it is not easy, because I don't want to go see a therapist, and I don't. Excuse my way, I'm gonna say this, but I don't want no white lady telling me that I'm just outright crazy for the way I feel.
And that's why, not to cut you off, but that is another reason why we started this podcast, because we wanted you to see people who look like you going through the same things that you go through. Absolutely. And being able to refer you to people who look like you, who can discuss these things in a medical way, or even in just in a group setting, or so that way you can get it out. Or even sometimes I feel, for me, when I write an email, like I used to write emails to myself, I would just send them as if I was somebody else. Dear Lisa, and I would go into it and I would write the whole thing out and I would send it back to myself, but I wouldn't read it. And then I would give myself a little bit of time and I would go back in and reread where I was at that time and kind of assess what kind of help I really needed, because I think sometimes we have so much in our head that the first time we talk to someone, we give so much information that they can't receive it. But if you prioritize where you are, like you say, I come from a place where in my family, a lot of people were gay. And my mom used to fight all the time because she used to try to prove that she wasn't. But she fought people all the time to prove it, like fist fights, to prove that you were something that you weren't, or vice versa. And the stigma sticks with you. And it's taken a long time for her to figure it out. But I promise you that we are here to help. We are here to hear your voice, and you are not alone in the fight that you're fighting, because there are millions of support systems, because that's what you are. You're a caregiver, and there's millions of caregivers that are here who need support, and that we are here to try to help you find places that match what you need.
And I would just add to it where, like I say, when you don't want that therapist, we're taking a peer a peer-to-peer approach with this podcast, so that always feel comfortable to reach out to us, because sometimes, like you said, you don't want to reach out to someone of a different background for them to talk to you, because they don't always understand some of the different things that we go through, because the stress that is caused by our common experiences. And if we feel like, not that we have it all together, but if we could just discuss these things, and Kay Latte said this, sometimes while you're talking to a friend, a girlfriend, a buddy, while you're talking through that situation, you actually come up with a solution yourself, and you just feel good because you had the time to express that. We want our podcast to be just that. We want it to be a place for regular people to have deep conversations. And so when that aha or that moment comes on, that bulb goes off, and you feel like, hey, I can now enjoy my life where I am, not feeling like I should be somewhere else, or not feeling like I'm starved or depraved somewhere else. I'm exactly where I need to be on the road to where I'm going, is what we want to see people gain out of this podcast.
Okay. I really enjoyed this. I'm glad I did get to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
And keep doing the beautiful work that you're doing.
Thank you.
If you haven't downloaded the app, make sure you download the app at Mix Station Radio Live, and you can get all the feedback, and anytime we go live, you'll be on there.
All right.
All right. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 2 1 2 with on 2 1 2 1 2. This is Mike on Organic Radio. Super DJ Sean Rebel. We got All Up in Your Business podcast up in the building today, along with your girl K Latte Life, DJ Latte, my man Lights, and Lovely the sister. Yes.
And so wrong.
All right. MIXXStation.com.
My man, Super DJ.
Yeah.
Rebel.
Yeah.
All right, good folk. We want to thank that last caller for calling in, because she gave us the perfect segue. We're bringing this next episode, this second episode, to a close. And as we're bringing it to a close, one of the things I wanted to share with our listeners is several years ago I wrote this poem, and I wrote this poem called "Would You Listen." This poem was one where I was similar to what Lovely said, was some of the poem was written to myself. Some of the poem was things that I was experiencing. But I wrote this poem because not only did I want to be heard, I understood that there were people who also wanted to and needed to be heard as well. So I want to read this to you. And after reading this poem to you, I want you all to understand that this podcast is not something that's going away. This podcast is something that we are looking forward to impacting our community. I hashtagged throughout the course of this weekend that not only do I love being from Baltimore, not that you shouldn't love being from where you're from, but I love being from Baltimore. I love the fact that I was born and raised in Baltimore. I love that my daughters have Baltimore connected to their name. And the reason I do is because the adversity in which I came from and that we come from, and the negative stigmas that sometimes go with my city, I'm not accepting them, and we're not accepting them. Some of the negative stigmas that come with mental health in black and minority communities, we don't and we will not be accepting those. We understand that there are people who are talking and they want someone to listen. And that being said, we will, at All Up in Your Business, be listening. So here we go. Would you listen? Written by William Gilmer. I really want to talk. The pain is starting to thicken. But I wonder if I open up, would you listen? I'm struggling, heartbroken. My eyes are starting to glisten. If I told you where I was, would you listen? Sometimes you say I don't want to talk. Your offers I'm always dismissing. But when I share what's on the inside, you rarely listen. You often interpret my words like you are the God of the universe, like you know the depth of my heart and what will cause it to burst. You say that you are listening, but your responses, they're always wrong. When we talk, I am the weird one, but you're always strong. I would open up and share me if you didn't second guess my thoughts. Sometimes I just want you to listen. I'm not looking for a lesson to be taught. I would appreciate it if you didn't tell me what and how I am feeling. Maybe if you accepted what I said, I would be closer to true healing. You see, intimacy is something I long for. I know that it is missing. I really want to give you my heart, but I wonder if you would listen. Or would you question my motives? I mean, are your thoughts already clicking? You see, that's it right there. I knew you wouldn't listen. In the book of Proverbs 18:13, it says, anyone who answers without listening is foolish and confused. Our goal in listening is so that we will not continue to be a community, a society, and a group of people who are foolish and confused. Our ears are open. Our hearts are open. We want to be here so that when we're in your business so that you can continue furthering your life in a positive way as we deal with mental health and mental well-being. We appreciate you guys.
So you can reach us at light.inyourbiz. That's LITE.NURBIZ. You can reach us at Lovely Brown, LOVELIBROWN, or you can reach us at AllUpNUrBiz at ALLUPNURBIZNESS podcast. Thank you so much.
Feeling